Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining today's session, Building an Assessment Readiness System That Works for the 2026-27 school year. My name is Jordan Friedman, and I'm a director here at MasteryPrep. We're excited to have you all join us today for a back-to-school conversation with Dr. Mya Asberry, our Director of Instructional Services. Before I pass it over to Dr. Mya to introduce herself, I just wanted to share a little background on MasteryPrep for those who may not be familiar. MasteryPrep was founded by Craig Gehring in 2013 and now partners with more than 3,000 schools and districts nationwide to deliver digital test prep tools and live instruction that build student readiness for high-stakes assessments, including the ACT, SAT, WorkKeys, TSIA2, and state end-of-course exams. Through live instruction, curriculum, practice testing, and adaptive online learning, MasteryPrep equips educators with the tools, data, and strategies needed to support stronger student outcomes throughout the school year. During the webinar, if you have any questions for Dr. Mya, please be sure to put those into the chat, and we'll spend a few minutes answering questions at the end of the session. And now I think we're ready to get started. I'll pass it over to today's speaker, who will introduce herself, and we'll get started with the webinar.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. As Jordan pointed out, I'm Dr. Mya Asberry. I'm the Director of Instructional Services here at MasteryPrep, which is just an amazing job. And that just entails being that bridge in between what's created and what is delivered, and also making sure that we always have high quality product trainings, student-facing events, as well as teacher-facing events. I'm excited to be here with you today talking about something that's near and dear to my heart, which is building an effective testing plan, which really leads back to my roots as a teacher, as an administrator, as a principal. This is something that I've had to do over and over again, and now I get to actually help people do that for a living. So it's exciting to be able to talk about something that I have well over 20 years of experience doing. So again, thank you so much for joining me here today. I actually want to get started just by seeing who's in the room. I'm not actually monitoring the chat, but it's being monitored. So you can just go in the chat and tell us your name and your role. If you're a teacher, if you're an administrator, if you're a district admin, if you're a principal, if you are one of our partners, or if you work with us here at MasteryPrep, we want to just honor your time and acknowledge that you are in the room. And we just love to know who we are talking to today. All right, so I'm going to start off just by telling a little bit of a story because I do TikTok videos, and I wanted to try to find a way for you to think about assessment in a different way. Because we always come on and we want to jump right into, plan with the end in mind and doing all of those things. But I wanted to do something that was a little bit closer to my personality and something I do personally. So I love making my TikTok cooking videos. I don't think I could make a living of it. However, I have had fun doing the videos, and I have had a lot of people reach out to me about some of the recipes. So, one of the things that I want to talk about is what TikTok recipe videos and our assessment plans have in common. So, first off, when I start a video, I'm always going to start the video with the end product. So what you're going to see is going to make you salivate. It's going to make you hungry. It's going to make your mouth water. And you're going to be like, this looks so good. I should stay on and continue to see how I made this. So I'm not going to come on with my milk, sugar, vanilla if I'm making pancakes. Pancakes, for some reason, is one of my highest rated videos, highest views. So I'm thinking about pancakes, even though we have weirdly vegetables and something else on the screen. But I'm thinking about pancakes in my mind. I'm not going to get your attention with the milk and the sugar and the cream. But guess what? I couldn't create the pancakes that I create without all of those ingredients. So I want you to think about that. Think about my steps. Think about me having to go to the grocery store, write out a list, having to figure out what I need to put in these pancakes, having to make sure I have all of the cooking tools that I need, and then having myself camera ready and ready to put all these things together to make sure that while I'm filming something, I come out with the absolute best product. That is how I want you to think about your assessment journey today, because your assessment plan is, in fact, a journey. And whenever we're going on that journey, we need a roadmap. Just like when I'm cooking my TikTok my recipes, I need all of the ingredients. I need all of the tools. So I want you to go ahead and shift your mind away from how do I get to the target to what are all the things that I'm going to see on the journey. So let's talk a little bit about why this may be a struggle for some of us. And for some of you, this may not be a struggle. You may be on here just to get, some extra tips, or you feel like you already have this in line, but there are some schools that do struggle with this. Every time testing season comes around, it's a scramble. It's a lot going on. We don't feel like we have everything that we need. That's because we have two types of schools that we're dealing with at any time. We're dealing with reactive schools and we're dealing with intentional schools. And put in the chat for me which one of those you think you should be. Not what you think you are, but what you think you should be. What's going to make you successful? Hopefully, everybody is putting in that they want to be that intentional school. A reactive school is always thinking about the end. The intentional school starts from the beginning. Before your students ever arrive. Here in Texas, this is the first week of school. Most schools started yesterday, or they're starting today, or they started on Monday. Planning should be already underway. If it's not, it's still early. We are still early in the process, and it is not too late to be intentional. So, after you leave this webinar, there are going to be some very simple things that you can actually do to get started on becoming an intentional school, because that intentional school situation starts in August. Actually, it starts in June and July, or actually moving on. Look, it could even start at the end of the previous year. But that type of planning for what assessment is going to look like on your campus does not happen in the spring. It does not happen after January. It has to be very intentional. Otherwise, you're reacting. You're reacting to everything that's going on, and it's happening around you. Well, why are my scores low? Now I need to spend time figuring that out. Well, we need to have a retest because that test didn't give us the information that we need. We purchased curriculum, but that curriculum is not matching up to the assessments. All of these things can get in your way and cause you to be a reactive school, which is what you don't want to be. So again, here are some of the different approaches when you have a reactive school. You're going to begin your preparation late, like I said, in the spring. You're going to try to cover everything and hope that it's enough. And you treat assessment prep like it's seasonal. Okay. So you think about, well, this is ACT season. This is SAT season. This is our EOC season. Instead of the entire year, we are preparing our students the same as we're preparing them for a spelling test on Friday, the same as we're preparing them for fluency, the same as we're preparing them for graduation. We need to be preparing them on how to approach assessment successfully. And we don't want to just focus on scores. We want to focus on the journey and how to get there so that we're not surprised when we get our scores because we know everything that's going to happen. Now, on the flip side of that, we're going to talk about intentional schools. And intentional schools, as I stated, start early. They are either going to start at the end of the year before, or they're going to start at the very start of the school year, which is where we are now, which is why we intentionally planned to have this webinar during this first couple of weeks of August. You're going to start early. You're going to master what matters. Mastering what matters means including things in your daily instruction that are going to match or help to make your students more successful on an assessment. And we're going to finish strong. That means we are going into it with our eyes open. We are Michael Jordan on game 6. We are ready for this, whatever assessment it is. And it doesn't matter if it's a state assessment or if it's a college readiness assessment. This plan will work either way. So let's talk about the framework because I like to have an acronym or a framework. I always used to do this with my teachers and as an administrator because it helps to remember. And I know as educators, they say we have too many acronyms. We are always putting a letter on something, which that's absolutely true. But I'm hoping that this will ring back in your mind once you go back to your campus or once you go back to your district. These are the simple 5 things that I want you to focus on to make this simple for yourself and still create a very effective testing framework. So first, we're going to talk about having your assessment calendar. What types of things do you need in that assessment calendar? And I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, now I know I hadn't got up at 10 o'clock in the morning for her to tell me I need an assessment calendar. We all have an assessment calendar already, and I'm sure you do, but you may not have an assessment calendar that actually serves you well. So I want you to think not so much calendar, more so system. So file that one. The next thing we're going to talk about is learning alignment. Is what you're teaching aligned with what you're testing, and why is that important? The next thing we're going to discuss is instructional response. Once you see that there are deficits, or once you see that there are progress, what are you going to do? What is your response? Do your teachers know what to do? Or do you just let the chips fall where they may? The next thing is growth monitoring. We want to focus on growth. Rome was not built in a day, so you have to have goal setting and you have to monitor growth for your students as well as your teachers. And then you want network commitment. Again, this is something that involves the entire community from admin all the way to parents. Everybody has a role to play in a successful assessment plan. So we're going to begin by talking about that assessment calendar. What should be on it? What should it look like? And the first thing that I want to do is take you back a little bit. I want you to think not about building a calendar, but more about building a roadmap. So we are starting in August. What is our roadmap? What are we doing in August, September, October? What are all those things going to look like? So within this calendar, so to speak, or within your roadmap, you want to have specific things. You want to have your assessment windows. We are only testing between this window and this window. If students are absent, they have this much time to reassess. That is a very important part of it. I'm sure right now you have dates for your testing. Do you have the dates for your makeup testing? Do you have the dates for the turnaround for getting the scores? Think about how the state handles assessment. They tell us not only the date, they give us a window of time that we can assess students, and then they tell us, and this is when you should expect to receive scores. So you want to do the same thing with your teachers. You want to do the same thing with your administrators. If this is a test that's taken outside of the classroom, and we're talking about right now, we're talking more assessments that are school-wide, not smaller ones that are given in the classroom, not more formative ones, but those that you want to track for growth throughout the year that you're going to use to determine where you end up at either the state assessment or the college readiness assessments that you're preparing for. So first of all, you want to know what that assessment window is. You want to know when those scores are going to be turned around. You want to know when the benchmark dates are, which are going to be your more summative assessments. We've taught all of this up until this point. Now we're going to test on the end of the 6 weeks, and we're going to test every 6 weeks. You want to know when you are going to have practice assessments, like real live, whatever that test is. If you're doing ACT and you are partner with us and you want to plan your practice test, that is something that we will plan with you. We will plan when the perfect time is to have a full-on practice test. And then the next thing you want to plan following that is, of course, your data. What is that data review going to look like? That's another thing that we do here at MasteryPrep. We don't just put an assessment out there. We have a way to then analyze the data. This should be outlined in your assessment roadmap. All of this in the assessment calendar. It should also include when you're going to launch intervention. Okay, if we're finished testing here, we've analyzed data here. Here is the next window of intervention. Intervention shouldn't just be a year-long thing. This kid's in intervention from day 1 to day 187. No, this kid's in intervention from starting after test 1 until the next assessment when we assess again. Then the student may be exited out of intervention, or they may have to remain in intervention, but we should have a clear-cut window for that. And where do your teachers find that window? Within the assessment calendar. What else needs to be in there? Your parent communication. When are you setting goals with students? When are we changing those goals? When are we doing planning checkpoints? When are we doing PLC meetings? And when are we celebrating the growth that we've seen from our students? So all of these things do not account for one calendar. So if you gave your teachers just one piece of paper or one document or one spreadsheet and all it has is testing dates, well, we'd love to talk to you. We'd love to help you build a true assessment framework and a roadmap that's going to really get your teachers started in the right direction. Okay, moving to the L, talking about learning alignment. So we are going to teach the standards, but we're going to prepare for the assessment. So at this point, I'm going to pause and I am going to actually address the elephant in the room, teaching to the test. Now, we at MasteryPrep, we are a test prep company. We have heard this at any which way you can think about us hearing it. I don't want to teach to the test. My teachers don't want to teach to the test. In teaching to the test, I think that's something that we need to just take out. We need to ask teachers to shift their mindset. We are not teaching to the test. We're teaching the standards, whether it's the college readiness standards, the end of course standards, or the state standards. We are teaching the standards. What we are doing is preparing for the assessment. So you teach the standards with the assessment in mind. And that's just smart business. When I'm in a room full of teachers and they throw that at me with the teaching to the test, I throw back at them. How many times did you look at the questions that were on the teacher test before you actually went to go take your assessment? You didn't walk in blind. You didn't say, well, I know exactly what I should know as a teacher. You had to understand the rigor of the questions. You had to understand how many questions there were going to be. You had to understand how it was going to be scored. And if you're a good teacher, you spent some time getting to know that and actually working with yourself on that format of question. So again, curriculum teaches knowledge. Assessments measure application. Students deserve and need exposure to both of those things. So this is something that needs to be addressed head on right at the start of the school year. So we're going to address a few of the differences that come with teaching only the curriculum and standards versus incorporating assessment readiness, which is what we want to do. So on this side of teaching only the curriculum, again, you're going to measure learning primarily through classroom assessments, through teacher assessments. You're going to provide limited instruction on pacing, on time management, and on test navigation, as well as you're going to expect students to master that and then transfer it naturally to the assessment. And for those of us who have been in education any number of years, we know those two things don't always match. What the curriculum expects from students and what the curriculum provides for students definitely does not always match what a state assessment or what a college readiness assessment is going to require of students. Now let's think about this blue side, incorporating assessment readiness. This is going to include practice with assessment aligned questions, tasks, and response types. This is important. You can give a student very, very good information. You can give them extremely good content. You can really, really give them guided instruction and an opportunity to practice what you have taught them. However, if that is not aligned with what they see on the assessment, sometimes it will, and a lot of times it will actually throw those students off just because they haven't been exposed to those types of tasks. Maybe the rigor is not the same. Maybe the vocabulary is a little bit higher. Any of those things could really interfere with a student's ability to be successful. Another thing on this blue side that incorporating assessment readiness provides structured, ongoing practice applying curriculum knowledge in assessment conditions. Students also need stamina. They need stamina, rigor, exposure. Okay? All of these things are going to work together to make sure that students not only learn the content and learn the curriculum and learn the standards, but that they are also learning what's going to be expected of them when they are being assessed. This is something that you really need to be intentional about. Sitting down with your teachers in PLC and walking through a unit. Do what we call a unit audit. A unit audit means you are looking at your unit and then you are looking at your assessment side by side. If you have an end of course assessment, You take the unit that is teaching that content and you see, is the rigor the same? Is the fluency level the same? Is the vocabulary the same? Is the complexity of the questions in alignment? If those things are not true, which 9 times out of 10, they're not going to be because test writers and curriculum writers are not always in the same mindset, then that means you're going to have to include some supplemental things for your students. These can include micro practices, warm-ups in the morning, adding additional questions in the homework or following the main content, or just really reworking what is in that curriculum to better match the rigor and the format of the assessment. But all of these things are necessary if your teachers expect for students to show up to an assessment cool, calm, and collected, because it is not anything that they have not been exposed to. So let's get into instructional response. So data should change tomorrow's lesson, not next week's lesson, not next month's lesson. Data needs to be readily available, and it needs to be something that has an impact on classrooms immediately. So if you are sitting into a PLC and you're walking through data, this amount of students missed this question, this amount of students missed that question, and you are not doing anything about it, that analysis means nothing. So going through these different levels here, we assess, we analyze. Let's talk about adjust. That's where we are now. We adjust. We have to adjust instruction. And the best way for your teachers to do that is to be targeted. When we are thinking about targeted interventions versus non-targeted interventions, we're talking about really getting down to the meat and potatoes. We're not just looking at how many students did well, how many students passed, how many students got meets masters, how many students met the college readiness benchmark. We're looking far beyond that. We are looking into question by question. What about this question threw my students off? Why is this one of the most missed questions? What about the wording of this question can I incorporate back into my lesson, because I can see based on the A, B, C, and D responses that the majority of my students chose D when they should have chose B. That leads me to know that I need to spend more time with X. And I'm going to attack and target that with the specific students that need to do that. Small group instruction, differentiating your lesson plans. All of those things are a great response to adjusting for data. What is not a great response? Saying, well, everybody in this grade level, let's throw that question back in for a warm up tomorrow. Well, that is not targeted enough. You need to really get deeper than that, adjust your instruction based on individual needs and individual questions. Yes, it's a lot, but there are tools to help you do it. And if you're partnered with us, you already know that. There's a way for us to help you go deep into question by question and really analyze your data and create a plan to respond appropriately. The next step is monitor. We don't adjust and just leave it. We adjust, we throw out another exit ticket, we throw out another short formative assessment, and we monitor whether we were able to clean that up. And that never goes away. It's a cycle. Everything that we teach comes back around so that it's constantly showing up in one way or another in front of the students. And then we just repeat that process. All right, let's talk about one of my favorite things, growth monitoring. As a former principal, I always just wanted to know what was my score. What's my grade? If we're doing A through F, am I an A or am I a B? Am I a C? But there's more to it than that. What we really want to focus on is growth. We want to focus on campus growth. We want to focus on individual student growth, and we want to focus on teacher overall growth. These are all things that we need to monitor and make appropriate determinations with. But there is a process to tracking and monitoring your growth to ensure that students actually have the highest potential to grow to their next level in an assessment. And so we have a model here called the growth model. So we start with the G, we're going to gather the baseline data. Here at MasteryPrep, we do have diagnostic assessments for many of our tests that's on our platform. It's a shorter assessment. It really just determines where the student is going to start. If you don't know where they are starting, you're not going to be able to monitor them. You're not going to be able to create a goal, and you're not going to be able to determine where they would likely finish. So we're going to gather the baseline. The next thing we're going to do is regroup those students according to data. So there's two R's that I sometimes use interchangeably. One is regroup and one is rank. So depending on your purpose, you can regroup your students. So if you're categorizing by did not meet, approaches, masters, so on and so forth, then you categorize. You regroup your students into that. The reason we do that so that we can more easily track and we can more easily differentiate within the classroom. If we don't know what category a student is starting in, if we don't know exactly where we're targeting them, we're going to just be giving out general instruction. The next thing we're going to do is outline the target or goal. This can be easily done on a spreadsheet. This can be easily done within our platform. Of course, if you're a partner of MasteryPrep, you won't have to worry about this because we will help you set the goals within our platform. But if you're not a partner of ours yet, what you can do is use a spreadsheet and go ahead and outline the target or goal for each of your students. That means this is where they are now. This is where I want to see them in 6 weeks. Not this is where I want to see them at the end of the year. This is where I want to see them on the next assessment. And have clearly in your mind how many points each student needs to gain to reach that goal. And the way that target should work is the lower the student has performed on the baseline, the more points they need to gain. So for example, if they come in and their baseline is between 0 and 20%, then that means they may need to gain 25 points. But if they come in and their baseline is at 20 to 40%, then they may only need to gain 20 points. But it goes down according to how high the student is on the baseline. And the lower they are, of course, the more growth we want to see at the end of the year. Next is the W, work the plan. In my opinion, the most important part of this framework is work the plan. So what does work the plan mean? That is your intervention in your room. If you have 6 categories based on end of course standards or based on CCMR standards that you're putting students in, I would never put more than 3 groups on a teacher. So I would take 1 and 2, that's one group, 3 and 4, and then 5 and 6. I would take my 3 groups every day, and very easy. AI can help you with this. You're going to have to adjust instruction because having students work on a level they're not ready for is not helpful. Having higher students that need to meet and exceed, working on lower levels is not going to help either. So you create your 3 different versions of the same thing. It can be changing fluency level, changing complexity of the problem. It can be offering different accommodations. However you choose to change it, you need to have different plans for your different categories of students. And every day in your instruction, you are working that plan. And as they're in that category and they start to perform better and they move to the next, you keep moving them until they are making the progress that you think they need to make. The T is obvious. You're going to have to track this. You need a spreadsheet or you need an amazing platform that will help you track progress, especially for CCMR, for college readiness assessments. You may not have the same tools for that you have for your general curriculum. You may not have the same tools for that you have for your end of course assessments. So you may need to seek out supplements to help you be able to track the progress and put real life ACT instruction in front of your students, or SAT or TSI2 or whatever test that you are working towards. It has to be tracked. You have to have data on the classroom level, on the student level, on the individual question level, and on the skill and standard level. It needs to be tracked. And then, of course, our H, you're going to highlight and celebrate at each marker, not at the end when we don't know if we made it or not. We're going to highlight and celebrate along the way so that our students are constantly receiving that necessary feedback. So last is our network commitment. As I said, everybody owns this, not just the principal, not just the chief academic officer, and definitely not just the superintendent. This is from the district all the way down to family. So everyone on this list is involved. What does that mean? That everyone has to have a voice in this. Don't come to the table with everything already sketched out. You may have dates that the district provided for you, but talk about some of those windows. Talk about when you're going to do data. Talk about that with your teacher. Talk about that with your instructional coaches. And then those teachers need to be having these conversations with students. This is why we're doing this. This is how we're doing this. And this is how we intend to get you from point A to point B this year. And you have to be a player in this game, not someone sitting on the bench. You have to be involved. Parents, families, have your assessment nights, let them know what is expected of students and how they can help. Again, if you have something, if it's our platform or if it's another platform that your students are working on to help prep for tests, make that available to your families. Let them know they can do this at home. This is going to be our plan for how we're going to integrate this into daily instruction. Don't leave families out. They want to know as well what you're doing to try to help their students. So it takes everyone, it truly takes a village. Assessment is owned by everyone. So again, just bringing it all back together. If you can do the things that I want you, especially administrators that are on the call, again, I'm not able to see the chat, but someone is monitoring it. I want you to think about one thing out of the aligned framework that you think you can immediately go back and change. Because we're just like our students. We can't change 5 things off of one webinar. I can't expect you to go back tomorrow and put together your entire framework. What I can say is that you can pick and choose one thing that you want to focus on. Is it the assessment roadmap? Is it the learning alignment piece? Really digging in with your teachers on being intentional about including these small strategies and practices every day that turn curriculum and standards into teaching with the assessment in mind. Is it your instructional response? How am I going to handle intervention this year? How am I going to handle differentiation this year in the classrooms with my teachers? Is it growth monitoring? For many, it is going to be growth monitoring because that is one of the tools that sometimes escapes us. We want to focus on the end result, but not that individual growth. And it's becoming more and more important that we understand how to grow individual students to meet those goals. Or is it the network commitment? Is it your communication with your staff and being super inclusive in your assessment plan? So I want you to think about that. I want you to throw in the chat the one thing that you are going to commit to, because people always use the term buy-in. To me, buy-in is not a thing. You don't have to like it. You don't have to buy into it. Just commit to it. Commit to trying one thing on our aligned framework moving forward. So let's talk again about our assessment readiness formula. This is the MasteryPrep assessment readiness formula. It is to start early. The time is now. You are on this webinar, so you are already ahead of the game. This means you are seeking information. You're seeking to determine a plan, and you're seeking to create a successful roadmap for this school year. So you're already ahead of the game, but start early. That plan needs to be happening right now. If we get into September and we go out on Labor Day and you have nothing of your plan, you're already behind. Master what matters. That is everything in the middle of our framework. How does instruction look? How are you bringing in supplemental materials? How are you tracking data? All of those things happen in Master What Matters. And then finish strong. You could bring in a boot camp. You could do, I've heard of districts and campuses doing a blitz, where we're just really hitting everything that we've already taught. We're just really making sure that we are tying up all loose ends so that students feel super prepared when they walk into the assessment on test day. This equals assessment readiness, which is what every school administrator wants, which is what every teacher wants, that students are not worried about this test, that anxiety is low because preparation is high. The aligned framework will help you with that, and MasteryPrep can also help you with those things. So as you're reflecting, again, think about your greatest opportunity this year. And in your mind, or actually write it down. I'm the queen of Post-it notes. Take a Post-it note and write it down. Which area represents your greatest opportunity for growth this year? Something that you're going to say, you know what? I think this is really going to have a huge impact on my campus. and I am willing to go all in. If you're willing to go all in, MasteryPrep is willing to go all in with you. If you need advice, if you need help on how to get started, reach out to me. I am willing to work with you. MasteryPrep is willing to work with you. Either way, whether it's us, whether it's someone else, find someone to work with, find someone who's willing to answer those questions, and just get started. At the end of the day, you have to get started. Nothing's going to happen without you. And you have already taken the first step by being here. So, in closing, just going back over, start early. It's built every day. Master what matters. That instruction has to be taught with the assessment in mind. Finish strong. Support every single student until the very last assessment. So let's talk about MasteryPrep just for a little bit because we are MasteryPrep. So how do we support our own framework of start early, master what matters, and finish strong? We offer pre-service professional development. We'll come in and train you. We have all different types of training. We have product training on our platform. We have product training on our curriculum. We have professional development on individual assessment types that will actually walk you through strategies and actually walk your teachers through what this test involves and how to get the best pacing, how to get the best time management, the best content management. All of those things are involved in our professional development, and we have those for a multitude of assessments, college readiness, as well as EOC and state assessments. Then we also can provide the diagnostics and the pre-test. So you want to see where your students are, go back to that growth framework. You need to gather the baseline. MasteryPrep provides that within our platform. We have both diagnostic tests and full-length practice tests. Master what matters. During the fall and the spring, we offer both curriculum with workbooks and PowerPoints that we have the teacher manual and the student manual. And we also offer online courses within our platform. We offer the study plan that will actually put students on their own adaptive pathway. There are so many different ways that we can support you in ensuring that you have a really strong test readiness strategy within that Master What Matters framework. And then finishing strong. Again, we have the post-test. We have several different versions of the full-length test on our platform that you can utilize. We will actually meet with you and help you analyze that data. And in late spring, we will send out one of our highly effective, highly engaging instructors to lead a boot camp. This is a full day experience where we really hit all of the most tested questions. We do that with energy. Students normally are engaged. They have a great time. But more than that, they are really getting those really true and targeted strategies that they can use right away to increase their scores. So that is how we support you as MasteryPrep. And we ask that if you are a partner with us already, take advantage of some of these things if you are not already doing so. And if you are not yet a partner with us, please feel free to reach out. I know that Jordan is putting some links in the chat, and you can reach out to us and we will make sure to connect you with that person that can get you set for this school year. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Jordan for questions and answers.
Thank
And
you,
thank you
Dr.
so
Mya.
much for joining me.
Thanks, Dr. Mya, for all of those insights. Really appreciate that. And yes, we do have one question that came in. What types of data tools and reporting are available in the Mastery Prep platform, and how do they support your digital programs?
All right, great question. So we have some amazing data and reporting tools in our platform. I'm going to start off talking just about the insights that we have. So the insight section is going to help track engagement and outcomes across your organization. That's going to be the place where you go to see not only how much your students and teachers are using the platform, but how they're using it. It actually shows you whether students are only on there for a minute, whether they're skipping questions. It actually gives you insight into how your students are using the actual platform. The next thing that we go over with you guys is usage. How often? What does usage look like on your campus? This is from an administrator view. Then you can see by campus. You can also see by teacher, all the way down to students. What is the usage of the platform on your campus? But the most important is our performance view. You want to see where your students are. So again, we have those diagnostic tools, and we're going to immediately, you don't have to wait for us to send you anything. After your students take that assessment, you can immediately see how they scored. You can see student by student, you can see the teacher as a whole, and you can see the classroom. Once you have that diagnostic test taken, for those tests that it's available for, it will actually put students on an adaptive plan, and you can track their progress in the plan. You can track their exit tickets. You can track how they are doing, and you can also make assignments. So you can see their scores, you can see their questions, and you can set goals and determine what content mastery is going to look like for each of your students throughout our platform. So there's never a way that you cannot see where your students and your teachers are within the platform, because there are so many different reporting tools that we provide, all the way from the top level of how is my district performing, down to individual students, down to individual questions and setting goals for each student. All that can be done within our MasteryPrep form.
Great. Thank
Thank you
you,
for that
Maya.
question.
Yeah, thank you. And one more question that came in asking if the framework that you shared, is this something that Mastery Prep offers training on or one-on-one coaching?
That is a great question. If you are a partner of Mastery Prep and you need overall guidance, we don't necessarily frame it as this framework, but we definitely will meet with you and we will help you design the assessment plan for your campus. Absolutely. And if the Align framework is the way you want to focus that plan, we are happy to partner with you and coach you with that.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Maya. And I think that's all the time we have for questions. Another big thank you to Maya for participating and sharing those insights as we kick off the 26-27 school year. Really grateful to have you with us today. A quick reminder that we'll be sharing the webinar recording via email in the next few days for easy access. In the meantime, feel free to visit our website, masteryprep.com, to learn more about our offerings and solutions, and be sure to check out our blog and follow us on LinkedIn for company updates. And that's a wrap. Thanks again for joining, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.